David, you good? All speed. Okay, we good, David?
Speed. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Good. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Have a seat, you old so-and-so. Oh, sorry. I keep banging into the camera.
How's my hair?
That's great.
I had this urge to just turn around and go the other way, just leave. You know, it was weird. And but you know, you can't do that.
No, I had the exact same experience. The captain said, "Okay, Stevie, we're going in." And when he said we're going in, I thought he was crazy. I said, why would we go in there? That was the first thing I thought. And I thought, no, we should be going out.
All these people that we see die, it wasn't in their plan for that morning. People woke up, they take their shower, they have their coffee, right? Just like we do every day. And then something tragic happens, whether it's a fire or an accident, and they're dead. Or somebody who's really important to them is killed. You know, one day that's gonna be our morning. We're gonna all get up one day. And it's gonna be our last day, and we have no idea.
I was a New York City firefighter for only about 4 years, back in the 1980s. What I didn't realize then was how much the job would stay with me and be a part of my life. Even today, when big events happen, like Hurricane Sandy, when so many people lost their homes, including a lot of firefighters, we all come back together. It's like a family. How are you and your guys holding up?
We're hanging in there.
We won't bounce back.
It will. It'll bounce back.
The shack is there, though. It didn't get washed away. All right, man. Have a good Thanksgiving, brother. I'll see you later on. We'll see you. I'll never forget, right after 9/11, looking over, you were by yourself, and you were digging, and you had that old scruffy helmet on and an old jacket. And I said, man, that looks like that guy from Con Air, I think it was, right? Was Con Air out? And somebody goes, that is. He was a fireman at 55 engine. I said, get the fuck out of here. I had no idea.
Right now. Hey, guys. Oh, you put dessert? What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. Hey, how you doing? All right. Hey, Ken.
How are you doing, Steve?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
I'm not hugging you.
Hey, I know. They stick his tongue in your ear. You gotta watch him. I see him on the street.
I'm sorry, Joe.
I see him on the listen. I see him on the street. I go to hug him. He gives me a kiss.
Yeah, you gotta go.
Anyway.
What we deal with now?
You're even finished.
Decision not coming back, Steve?
Medical benefits,
Still
Joe.
thinking about
Remember medical benefits.
I had no designs on being a firefighter. I had some vague idea about becoming an actor. It just, you know, I was sort of directionless.
Same way. It was the same way, Steve, you know. I remember saying to my dad, oh, I never thought about being a firefighter. And he said, oh, it's a good job. He said, you should take the test, so.
In my family, I have 3 brothers. Whatever civil service test came up when we turned 18, we just had to take it. And I was lucky that for me, it was the fire department.
All firemen are appointed and promoted under civil service. Applicants are required to pass a written examination, strenuous physical agility tests, and are subject to close medical scrutiny before accepted.
It all begins at the Proby School. The Proby, more dignifiedly known as a probation fireman. Here, the Proby is introduced to all phases of his chosen career.
Hold cover. Let's go. Sometime today, Dan. Spin up.
Yes, sir.
What is wrong with this picture right here, son?
Forgot to secure my gear, sir.
You forgot to secure your gear?
Yes, sir.
And why is that?
I didn't double check, sir.
You didn't double check?
No, sir.
I'll deal with you later, son.
Yes, sir.
Aye, sir. There is. Yes, sir.
So, what was it about the fire department that made you want to join?
I'm like the little kid who said he wanted to be a fireman, but actually meant it.
I've always wanted to be a firefighter. My school was right down the block from the firehouse that I'm working in right now.
Get down. Heads up. Heads up. Heads up. We are a team. We are only as strong as our weakest individual. Up, high, down.
I was on the police department list, and I was on the correction list and the fire department. And I just thought about it. I go like, I'm not really a gun person.
I had seen a couple of fires when I was a youngster, and I was impressed because I'm standing across the street and looking at this volume of fire, and I said, wow, they put all that fire out, saved lives, very dramatic. As a young, red-blooded Brooklyn kid, I said to myself, wow, that's pretty exciting.
Well, my interest in the fire department is in my blood. My father was a firefighter. My father-in-law was a firefighter. My godfather was a firefighter. And I do think probably half my cousins are firefighters. I was encouraged to be a firefighter myself, but I'm not that brave.
I think it's in our blood. The itch is there. I think my father kind of planted a seed, you know.
Two of his older brothers were firefighters, and it kind of led him into being a fireman.
It's in my blood. My grandfather was a firefighter, and then my father. I don't know if I had a choice.
My brother Tommy had already been a firefighter, and my brother Timmy and I had actually taken the test together.
My father sent the application into the fire service. I took the test, one of the first tests I ever passed.
But he made us, you know, not forced us to take the test. He recommended me, you should take this written test, just in case, use it as backup.
And I thank God that my father steered me in that direction, because I really had no idea what the job was about and what I was getting into. Do you remember your first job?
I was terrified. I mean, they say your knees knock. Physically, my knees were knocking.
I said to myself, you made a gross error. This is...
I was actually praying that there wouldn't be a job.
The call comes in, the alarm goes off, the adrenaline starts right then and there, cranked up to the max.
Well, anybody that says they're not scared, they're full of shit, okay? Because, you know, you should be scared, and that's what keeps you alive.
There's 6 engines and 2 tower ladders. There's trucks and there's engines, you know, which I really didn't know the difference until I was in Proby school. The truck is basically tools, and they're ladders, and they do search and entry and ventilation.
Well, the engine is, they have the hose. They hook up to the hydrant, stretch the line, and bring the water into the building.
I like to say the engine is the most important because we have the water. And without the water, you can't put the fire out.
Nozzle, a nozzle. That's the holy grail right there.
First year, I was assigned the can position in the truck.
All right, the can is the 2.5-gallon water fire extinguisher, and you carry the can and the hook. It's amazing what you can do with that little can.
And I was just, like, I struggled to get my mask, to get the can, to get, you know, I didn't even, like, know where the lieutenant went. The other guys had to say, you know, this is where you go in here.
10-4 status of the fire. Still doubtful.
You're rolling in, you smell it first, you're a couple of blocks away, you know you got a job.
You want to have a good job. You don't want to have, like, you know, a little one-room stovetop fire. You want to have, like, you know, 1 or 2 rooms going. You want to put out a lot of fire.
When they say good job, that means, I didn't really know how to put this, that they got their butt kicked. You know what I mean? That means it was a really tough fire.
All you want to see is flame, because with the smoke, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. Because smoke could explode. Smoke is keeping you from getting to the flame. So once you see flame, you know you got the fire.
You're basically you're looking for fire.
And as the smoke and heat subside, you keep going. If the smoke and heat doesn't subside and that fire comes out, you don't go.
There's a certain amount of intuition involved in firefighting. Where you have to feel what's going on.
Once you cross that threshold, that camera has no business being there because it'll be useless.
If you close your eyes, and that's pretty much about what it is.
You can't see anything. Literally can't. You could put your hand up in front of your mask. You couldn't see anything.
In my day, you had to have 20/20 vision. First couple of fires I went to, I said, why do they demand that? Because you can't see anything.
See, fire has a sound. You know, it's a roar. When you open that door and the windows are broken or vented, you know, it's a roaring fire. You know, you could hear that.
I think one of the things that I could say about fire is very seductive. See the fire roll over the ceiling above you. Sometimes it mesmerizes you.
You start crawling in that doorway, you hear the crackling. Is it past me yet? Is it in front of me? Where's it going?
You're listening for fire and the crackling noise to find out where you're going or if there's victims calling out.
They're fearful. They just want out. We're trying to get in. We're trying to make headway.
You feel what's going on by urgency in people's voices. If there's a lot of urgency in messages, you know, and the tone is changing.
It's absolutely incredible. Like, you don't even think that your brain can work that fast.
I mean, I love it because you have to, like, it's the one time when I feel really focused.
Hey guys, don't lose it, guys. Don't lose it.
You never have it 100%. I had a wake-up call a couple of years ago. It was like a perfect storm type of situation. There was an arsonist running around in Woodside. They had a deck behind the house. The guy had lit up the deck. You know, not a big deal, all outside of the building. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, we're gonna run upstairs and check the bedrooms, make sure no one's asleep. I'm up there 1 minute, everything's fine, and the next minute, it's like, it's piercing heat that has me flat on the floor, paralyzed, unable to move. And, you know, I was trapped. I mean, at 33 years on the job, I'm like, how did this, like, there was a wall of fire outside, trying to shut the door to the bathroom. There's stuff in the way. There's like a rug on the floor and all this stuff. It's like red from floor to ceiling. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe it. Like, after all this, I'm gonna die in this stupid bathroom, on the floor of this bathroom. You know, after all this time, like, how did I get into this situation? And then in my head, I'm like, well, you know, they know you're here. They know you're here. Just breathe. And then all of a sudden, there was a shift in the temperature, and it started to drop, and I knew the line's on the way, you know, and they were coming up, and the water came. I mean, it was okay.
When it's all over, you think to yourself, let's do that again. That was pretty good.
You come back from a fire, you sit at the kitchen, you break each other's balls, but the serious part was you talk to each other about what you did at that fire, because everything is about bringing the new guy up.
Guys are saying, well, the job's changing. Job does change. Headquarters changes, the equipment changes, but the firehouse kitchen does not change.
Can you just talk a little bit about the culture of the firehouse and what the kitchen is like?
There is no culture.
And why is
That's the wrong word, but
Talk about the low culture of the firehouse.
Steve was happy to see me because for 8 months you were a junior man having your balls busted by these guys until I came here, and then you had somebody's balls to bust.
I didn't know what ball busting was until you came on the show. When I saw what they did to you. I thought, oh, wow, I had it easy. But remember Phil O'Mara?
Oh, yeah.
He was hanging out one day, right? And I come in, and you guys introduced me, and he looks at me. He said, "What'd you do before you got on the job?" I said, "I was a furniture mover."
You were a mover? What did you move, flowers?
We knew you had an accent. We didn't know you were an actor, though.
It's just part of the tradition of the fire department, you know, because you're living with these guys, you know, you're working with these guys, and I'm dependent on you, you're dependent on me, you know, to make sure we go home tonight, you know? So you want to see where this kid is, and you want to see how much he could get involved and take the abuse. But it's usually not abuse. It's just all good fun.
You put powder in the bed. You put like baby powder on the pillow, so that for at night. So when he lays down, you know what I mean, the powder. There was a really good one. We used to take like 4 soda cans and put it on, you know, the 4 ends of the bed, under the bed where it sits on the floor. And it was so strange. The guy would get in the bed and nothing happens. And around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I guess his weight built up, the bed would collapse down.
As we say, there's a lot of love in this room, you know, even when it's just the opposite.
I can remember one time I walked into the kitchen. My house had been robbed the day before. And I walk into the kitchen, I'm feeling down, and I look on the board and it says, "For sale." Everything that was stolen out of my house was listed on the board, "For sale." And I realized, oh my God, that's that dark humor that gets you through the tough times. See, when you go into the kitchen of a firehouse, it's actually you're going into your doctor's office, you're going into your contractor's office, you're going into your psychologist's office, the baby doctor. Whatever you got going on in your life, there's somebody in the kitchen that knows what to do.
You know, they say the ways of the world are solved in the kitchen, and it's true.
Every time. So we should be eating around 10 p.m. tonight?
The families at home that eat together, they say, are closer. It was that closeness, the camaraderie, you know, that second family aspect of the department that really hooked me. Anybody can call takeout.
When I came in the fire service, you know, my mother would make me my lunch, and the guys would say, "You in or out? You know, are you in a meal or out?" "Oh, no, I'm in. I wouldn't eat my mother's lunch." You know, I mean, that's excommunication. There was parties for everything in the fire service. There was a party for a promotion, firefighter going off probation, 20-year retirement.
The best call to get is from Martha, and she says, "Boys' night out is..." I love it, said Martha going, "Boys' night out is..." Are you going, Martha? Yeah, I'll be there. Okay. So how did you come to take the test?
I saw a poster in a Vietnamese restaurant on Pike Street. And I didn't really know, I was just working as a secretary at the time. And I didn't really know, like I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what it was. And I guess it was like an ignorance is bliss situation because like I didn't know much about the job, but like I figured like, oh, I can do that. So it worked out well for me.
It did.
I don't know if you can measure the difference between 1982 and today. I don't think that there's a word that is big enough to encompass how great it is now.
When women were allowed to take the test in New York in 1977, there was great resistance. You cannot emphasize enough how much resistance there was from the all-male fire department.
It was the 70s. It was like Helen Reddy singing I Am Woman, you know? And I thought, what do you mean women couldn't take the test? My father was a firefighter. When I first said I was taking the test, he said, maybe your sisters, but not you. And I was at the time a secretary in Manhattan in a bank, not making any money. I knew that these guys all raised families on a civil service salary. You know, I was raised on one. And I didn't picture that happening as a secretary. going to work at 7 in the morning, getting home at 7 at night, and making no money was not really appealing to me. And, you know, even the guys in the neighborhood that I knew who were firefighters, they were all very happy. I wasn't happy being a secretary. It was just something I did. So, I thought this could be something that actually worthwhile to do.
I really wanted to make history. I wanted to make history in New York City.
In 1978, the only time women were tested for the fire department, all passed their written tests, but failed the physical tests. Brenda Berkman thought those tests were biased and sued.
The physical was like a bunch of crazy different tasks. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't. Basically, the Judge Sifton decided that, well, they should make the fire department physical, representative of what a firefighter does. Pulling hoses, raising ladders, dragging dummies, forcing doors. Once they announced what the second test was going to be, I thought I could do that.
Muscles were what young men, that's all we have. When you're young and stupid, you join the fire service. So when that was taken away from us, that was part of the anger.
That was a biggie. My attitude was that, okay, I really don't like the idea of this, people coming into the department sort of sideways.
It was handled badly by the city. They just threw those women out there in the firehouses. Young men have difficulty being assimilated into a firehouse. The women were not giving it a break.
Oh, no, I was not like every other probie. Absolutely, positively not. It was definitely a hostile work environment for a very long time, and not by many, but just by enough. I really craved to have my funk floured or to have, a bucket of water dumped on me, because that would have meant I was one of them, and that never happened in my first firehouse. A lot of things were just cruel, out and out cruel. If I went to a fire, sometimes he would say, oh, this is your last one. Somebody urinated in my boots. Some people came to work thinking they would just make my life miserable, and they did.
Every probie, every new firefighter has to prove himself or herself. However, that said, there's no question that black firefighters, women firefighters have had to prove themselves in ways that white male firefighters have not had to.
When I initially went to Rescue 1, I was one of the first, black firemen to go there. When I went and spoke to the captain, and he says, well, maybe some guys, might be prejudiced or something like that. So I said, Cap, well, that's their hang-up, it ain't mine. Now I figured it out. He was checking me out to see where I stood with it, you know what I mean? And I didn't realize that at the time.
Right now, I still could get on the rig, and I can still walk out there in the area, and then you have some people going, wow, this is the first black firefighter that I've seen.
Of course, today, the fire department of New York is still more than 90% white.
You know how timing is everything in life? I came at a time when civil rights was coming into play. So as an African American in the black community, I got sent to schools that were all white schools to be able to integrate them. So I was always a first at doing something. It was the time that I came along. So that helped me, actually, in the firehouse.
I got promoted in 1994, so it was 12 years later. Accomplishing that meant a lot to me. It really did. I went from liking my job and doing my job to loving my job and loving this department.
Firefighting is like a war. You're in an uncontrolled, deadly environment.
I want to talk about a fire that I know that you were at that before 9/11 was one of the biggest loss of life for firefighters, the 23rd Street fire.
I was a lieutenant in a 33 engine. And all hands came in for box 598. We were assigned on the second alarm.
Just around the same time that engine 33 pulls up, company 18 pulls up too. Chief Riley tells engine company 18, okay, listen, get a line into Wonder Drugs. Tells engine 33, you cover the exposure.
Now, I stand there, I look in the drugstore, the light is on in the store. There's a light wisp of white smoke. I said to the firefighter, there's nothing here. Let's get around to where the action is. So we go around to Broadway. Now, what 18 Engine did was they walked to the back of the drugstore. Now they're standing on top of the basement of the building on 22nd Street. And this building had a art frame business, and they had drums of lacquer, varnish, and thinner in the basement. What nobody knew is that business was so good in that art frame store that they broke through the cellar of the building on 22nd Street and took over the back third of the building on 23rd Street. The Wonder Drugstore had what they call a terrazzo floor. It's a marble finished floor. And this thick 5 inches of masonry insulated the heat of that fire. Then suddenly, a large, entire section of the terrazzo floor collapsed right into the fire. When the floor collapsed and all those firefighters fell in it, it compressed the fire. The ball of fire and heat and smoke come roaring out.
12 firefighters died that day. And the guys in Engine 33 lived.
I often wonder what if those orders were reversed. If Chief Rowley said, 33, you go into the Wonder Drugstore. So I was a young kid. I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, you lost so many firefighters. I remember going home that morning after there all night, recovered all the bodies. And I jumped into bed. I was exhausted, and my little daughter, 2.5 years old, comes running in, jumps into bed with me and snuggles up. And I said, well, there's a lot of kids who are not going to have daddies to snuggle up to anymore. But then I fell asleep. I make deputy chief 10 years later. I'm in the Bronx, 7th Division, commander up there. And I start to write these training manuals for tactics and strategy. And then I start to write about building collapse, floor collapse, wall collapse, ceiling collapse, stairway collapse. And I can't stop writing about building collapse. And I tell my wife, I feel like I'm vomiting this stuff out. I realized then that was my post-traumatic stress debriefing. Yeah, I held it in for 10 years, and then I wrote it in a book, floor by floor and wall by wall collapse. So that's how I exercise my demons.
We're a little more, not as attached in a lot of ways. We can go to a fire, and when we walk away, somehow you just kind of put it in the back of your mind, and you keep going on. When you're a firefighter in New York City, the war is on fire, and it's never ending.
6 New York City firemen died in Brooklyn when the...
I remember the Walbaum's fire. I just saw the headline, and, you know, some sort of denial set in where I didn't really want to know about that part of it.
I do remember thinking about it like, yeah, we're going to be, you know, firefighters. I don't think I really comprehended what we were getting into.
There's a lot of departments that are aggressive. I don't think there's anybody as aggressive as New York City. It's part of the way we were brought up. The people that went through the war years with me, they built the basis for what we have today. It's on the backs of those people that went through the most difficult years we've had.
It happens 30 times a day. Someone is burning down a building. A landlord for profit. A tenant for revenge. Junkies, vandals. Arson is our fastest growing crime.
More than 11,000 firemen were injured fighting those fires last year.
If it's tenable, you're going in. If you're getting reports that there are people in there, you know, you're going to make that move, regardless of what's going on. I mean,
you can't think.
You got to get in there.
You got to act. Aggressive attack, and that's the best way to fight a fight. Very aggressive.
We haven't went through anything that they went through. We went through a couple of jobs here and there where you thought your life was on the line. They went through a couple of jobs a day where their lives were on the line.
They came from the war. Most of the men were World War II veterans, you know, Pacific, Europe.
Our father, he came out in 1962. He went through the war years, the 60s and 70s, and he didn't talk about his experiences. until I came on the job, and then he opened up. Not a whole lot, you know, he still had that Marine.
That's when Mom told him that's enough, let's move on to something else. But I got to see him in action. Yeah, I was a probie, and I couldn't believe how fast he was at a fire.
You know, no mask, no front piece on, no breathing apparatus. So I said, oh, I'm gonna try this. We start moving in, and I just hear him talking. 15 feet, back to the left, down the hallway, the room's on the right.
I had to follow him. You know, like a duck following their mom around. I just followed him everywhere he went.
And now I'm pushing in, I'm coughing, I'm hacking up a lung. My face is probably on the ground, trying to breathe, and I couldn't hang with him. I'm taking hits, you know, and he's just talking like it's a walk in the park.
He said, get in the apartment now. And I said, all right, we go, open the door, get in the apartment. The whole stairway collapsed. The interior stairway collapsed. And that's probably the only thing he said, get in the apartment. His nickname was God, you know, which is kind of a big nickname to carry.
When you look back in 1967, when my father got on the fire department, they had come out with this new technology called a mask. And you put it on your face and you could breathe it in smoke. Now, most people would say, wow, that's great technology. You know, we all got to use it. When do I get mine?
When they insisted that this mask be used on a regular basis, car fires, this and everything else, I remember I think I was a captain at the time. I was saying, what are we turning into?
Nobody wanted to use it because if you were caught with a mask on, you were looked upon as a coward.
Firefighters, given the work that we do, we have to think we're invincible, because when you walk through a door and there's fire on the other side, if you make a left, you live. If you make a right, you die. That's a subconscious decision that you're making that, you know, not too many people can handle.
I was relatively new, and I worked Friday night, and early in the morning we had a loss of life. This is 49 years ago, and it was my first, a mother and child.
The thing that struck me with that particular fire was the bed had the same sheets that my son's bed had.
About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a tenement fire on Pitkin Avenue. It was a loss of life of a child in a crib, and it was tragic. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, you know, what do we do now? You know, fire's over, we go home.
I don't know, I think I was just sort of like a little numb. I mean, I think I've always been sort of removed a little bit, like a little bit distant from it. I mean, I guess it's my mechanism.
I came home, and my wife was packed, ready to go. We had booked to go up to the Poconos Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, come home. And on the way home, my wife was saying in the car, she says, it's over, the marriage is over. She says, we're not talking. You haven't. And I realized, I said, honey, no, I love you as much now as ever. And I said, but I didn't tell you what happened. And so I described to her what happened. She said, oh my God. I pulled the car over off the road. I broke down, which was, at the time, I thought inappropriate. But now I look back and say, no, that's what you're a human being.
We know that it's a cumulative effect, all these different traumatic events that firefighters are exposed to. And eventually it becomes too much for some to deal with, which we have to understand is what we're putting these guys at risk for.
The Happy Land fire was certainly something that would haunt me.
Did you know that it was a social club when you were going there? Did you know that there were...
No.
You really had no idea then what you were going to find?
No, I thought that it might not be anybody in there.
They're coming out running from where? Coming out running from the club. It's only
you couldn't see, so we didn't see the rest of the second floor. But after a while, as more companies were coming up the stairs from the interior of the club, from the first floor, and it was becoming more well lit, that you could see, there was people all over the second floor. A lot of people looked like they were just sleeping because nobody was burned. And you didn't see, like up there, we didn't see people who had a lot of soot necessarily on their face. The first person I removed, a woman, and I still remember what she looked like. And you could see that it was, it was too late for everybody. That's when I made, I decided I'm not gonna, look at people's faces if I don't have to.
The arsonist, he had just had an argument with his girlfriend, who was the hat check girl. And he was really disruptive. The bouncers had to throw him out, and he threatened them. I'll be back, I'll fix you guys. He did come back.
So he opens that door, splashes the gasoline. The inside door was closed, and he throws a couple of matches down and then walks away.
The superheated gases and smoke from the gasoline went right up the wooden stairway, and it just killed him right in the spot. At the bar, at tables, people on the dance floor just fell to the floor. And it was still lightly smoke, and the guys were in there, and they were saying, this floor is awful soft. It's spongy. It might be ready to collapse. They were standing on the bodies of the people who got killed.
You see people like a battlefield, just bodies laying all over the place. 87 altogether. I remember thinking, I didn't want to be there anymore. There was nothing more that we could do.
Drama is an amazing thing. You can't put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Somehow along the line, this is gonna pop out. In stress, in road rage, you're gonna bring it home. You can't talk to anybody in the family. Where is this stuff gonna go?
Can't really talk to somebody outside of the job about things like that, You could talk to another fireman about it, but I wouldn't bring that home to my wife.
Do you think that there's still firefighters out there that are reluctant to seek help?
It's not a part of the everyday firefighter's lifestyle to ask for help.
What do you need help for? You can't take it? You can't take the death, or you can't take the stress of this job?
Don't feel sorry for yourself. Nothing happened to you. You didn't lose your life. You didn't get hurt. You don't need this. Somebody else needs this.
It was a full moon. I remember the night, the stars. You could smell it in the air. We knew we had a job. I was the inside team. I was the can. These guys were very diligent about, well, there might be somebody in there. So we ran into the building. We searched every floor. We got up to the top floor. There's a room, the dead man's room, that the officer or we always have to go check, because there's only one way out of the room. If you don't take the doorway, you got to go out the window. And I noticed that the fire escape had been set on fire. As soon as I walked to the middle of the room to follow the officers in them, there was an explosion. I never saw a light like this. And that's when I was like, oh, no, no, no. Because, when you're standing from a 4th floor and you're looking down and there's nothing but cement, that's a long way to jump. I didn't realize I was on fire, okay? I had that new bunker gear. I was cooking in it. It was like I was like some beef in the oven cooking, and I didn't know. And when the fire started up my neck, it snapped me out of my shock, and I just closed my eyes and I stood in the window and jumped. Then I never opened my eyes again. The EMT guys were saying, open your eyes, talk to us, but I thought I was in heaven. I know it sounds silly, everything I'm saying to you. I didn't expect to live after that. I really didn't. The guys were telling me how lucky I was because the firefighters that had shown up put their body in the way so that when I jumped, I didn't break anything. I spent like 3 months in the burn center here in Manhattan. I had skin grafts. I had third-degree burns everywhere. And then I was a little crazy after that. Post-traumatic stress set in. I was seeing people that we had been at fires, dead people, in little dark areas, or certain lights hit you and it all comes back. It's just like being a soldier at war. You always ask, why me? But, you know, if you've been on the job long enough, you're gonna get hurt. Your time comes around.
On that day, you know, when you hear the number of casualties of civilians, yeah, I just wasn't able to even understand it until I heard the number of firefighters. And the first number that came in that I heard was they were estimating that 100 firefighters were killed. And that to me was unbelievable. I didn't know who, but I knew I was going to know people, you know, and that's when it became real for me.
We knew he was working. I think he even said on the radio, this is a terrorism act. My dad did over the air. He knew what we was getting into.
I was actually on vacation, and I was in New Mexico with my husband, and when the buildings came down, I turned to my husband and I said, I think everyone I work with is dead. So, sorry. And basically, that was true. Almost everyone I worked with who was working that day died. So.
And I recall walking down West Street, you know, and seeing the devastation, and walking up to Chief Crothers, who was my dad's boss at the time, and I said, where's my father? And then he's like, he just shook his head like this, put his head down, he's like, I don't know, Joe.
Joe was in that area when I first got there. We met eyes, and you know, he shook his head, and so I knew what he meant.
It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I found out that both my brothers were in fact working. So, you know, at the time I just told my mother that they were just listed as missing. I knew they weren't going to be alive, but until we found something of them, I didn't want to take that hope away from them.
On September 12th, I knew I wanted to go and help, so I rejoined my old company, Engine 55, and went to the pile with the rest of the guys. And we all just started digging. I brought my video camera. From Engine 55, there were 5 guys missing. But we all kept looking.
Your day consisted of either of 2 things. Either going back to the site, recovering bodies, pieces, or going to funerals.
like a memory. When we found a guy, it was a good day.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you felt you gave closure to family. You just think like, wow, that's a good day.
In the end, the remains of 4 of the 5 fallen members of Engine 55 were recovered for their families.
It was never ending in the firehouse. It was like, people would come by, you'd have these buses pull up and 32 people from Pennsylvania want to sing you, Christmas carols, Church groups came to pray with you. It was long days, and you really almost never escaped it. It felt like every day you were reliving it somehow.
My new best friend was Mr. John Walker. Okay, some people call him Johnny Walker. And he was my companion. Intellectually, I knew what I was doing, but I felt I needed a cushion. 343 of the firefighters, 2,750 people, one day, one event. And I couldn't process it.
I felt it was, in a way, hard to place your grief. I think it would have been, I don't know, if you told me one of those guys died, it would be as hard as all of them. It's like it was hard to comprehend, and all these years later, it's I don't feel like it's completely sunk in. We lost that many firefighters at one operation.
People say you get better at things. I don't think so. Not that kind of stuff. It's always going to be there.
I don't feel like I struggle per se each day. Like, how am I going to get through the day? Or why am I so angry?
Yeah.
Why am I yelling at the kids? It's just when it happens, I said, I shouldn't have probably yelled like I did. But looking back on it, I attribute it to what we've gone through.
I feel like it's like a hockey game with the plexiglass. I'm on the spectator side of the plexiglass, and my family, friends, and everybody else is on the other side. And I want to, but I can't get on the other side. I can't get on the ice. I can't get into the game. And they can't hear me. The only people that can hear me where it resonates with are other firefighters.
The firefighters are the tough guys, and I'll get through this on my own. And then September 11th hit, and everybody knew that this was something that was going to be way beyond what we had ever done before.
There was such an overwhelming need for counseling and for reaching out.
We realized that when we were sending counselors there, psychologists, people weren't opening up.
How did you get involved in being so what is your title, first of all?
Oh, good point. A peer counselor. A buddy of mine called me up after 9/11 and said, listen, the counseling unit's looking for some guys to work in the counseling unit. I said, yeah, I don't know anybody. He said, no, I want you. You don't want me. I don't know anything about that stuff. He said, no, what we're taking senior guys who were there during the war years, and the guys will listen to them.
Firefighters do not openly tell you what's bothering them. You have to pull it out.
So instead of what I call stuffing it, you kind of get it out. You know what I mean? Whether it's yelling, whether it's screaming, whatever it takes.
We learned right after September 11th that unless we had peer counselors, people weren't going to open up to them.
I guess you'd say we're the middleman. We go around to the firehouses and we try to motivate them into tapping into mental health.
I went there the first day, sat down, I said to myself, no, these guys don't know the hurt that I feel, the loss that I feel. And then the first guy starts talking. And I'm saying to myself, he stole my lines. Second guy, very similar. By the time they got to me, it was just more of the same. We all went through it.
One of the things that the FDNY did in rebuilding itself was to understand that there is a tremendous fallout after such an event like that, or even mini 9/11s, which happen every single day, multiple times in the city. There's fires, there's people dying, there's tragedies that firefighters are the people that are holding their hand when they die.
But one of the things that I love about the fire department is the sense of tradition and pride that is just built into this job. What I also love about this job is that firefighters not only help other people, but you help each other. You really have each other's backs, and you help and support each other. That's when you're not too busy busting each other's balls. I know that also goes along with the job. It's been a decade now since 9/11, and the fire department is still feeling its effects. We have members who are still struggling. We have members who are sick. We have members who are dying. And some of their family members are here tonight, and you honor us by your presence.
We've lost over 60 guys to cancer since 9/11. What you're seeing right now really is just, I think, the tip of the spear of what's coming for guys who responded that day. We were always told at the time it would be probably about 10 years before these things start to metastasize, and you're seeing it now. I can't remember a day since September 11th that I haven't coughed.
Well, just from our firehouse alone, we've had 8 guys with symptoms. Well, they called it the World Trade Center cough, Some guys, if you make them laugh too much, they cough up blood.
It's scary, Steve. It really is. That's one thing I think I put my defense up. We don't talk about it, my wife and I don't talk about it, but it's scary. It's scary what could happen to you and what's going to happen to your family.
I mean, you can't walk into any firehouse in the city without seeing 5 or 6 fundraiser flyers on any billboard for a guy that's sick.
That's what we do. And that's what he did in 9/11. Larry was the guy you can count on. A couple of times in the holiday when I wanted to go to the Trade Center, he said, "What are you doing?" "I'm going to the Trade Center." He says, "I'm coming with you."
Joey's brother's missing. He's back and forth there continuously. And I mean, you just had to be there, become a way of life. There's a lot of resentment and regrets there. There was a lot of things that were preventable here, I believe. And, you get statements from the EPA that the air is safe to breathe 3 days later, and, you're like, all the stuff inside that building that was crushed there, between the glass and the concrete, and where's it going? We're ingesting it, we're breathing it in. It's always on your mind you might get sick. I'm the chauffeur, I drive the fire truck. It's every kid's dream. Nobody wants to talk about the bad sides of the job.
I'd have to say the most thing that he loved about the job was the guys. Being around everybody, and because nobody understands us more than another fireman. Even our wives sometimes don't even get our jokes. They're like, "These are a bunch of assholes," That's what they would tell us. We had a talk one day, and he looked at me, and I just looked at him, and I says, "Is there anything you want?" And he just, "No, we're good. Just do what you do."
And now we watch as these brave men and women who fought fires and fought so hard to save their lives and their careers fight even braver battles against the diseases. Today, we remember 12 individuals and place their names on our World Trade Center Memorial Wall.
It's a realization that, you may get sick down the road, but would I not have gone there? Absolutely not. If it happens again tomorrow, I want to be the first guy there. That's just how I am. Maybe some people think that's foolish, but, that's why I'm a fireman.
I think ultimately, the best thing to do is to be of service to other people. And if you can find a job that allows you to do that, you know, what else do you need? And it's, the fire department has like turned me into a man, you know, like a mensch.
When you first get on a job, yeah, I want fires, I want to do this, yeah. Then after a while, you go, well, if it happens, I'm here to do it. Then as you go longer, you go, boy, I'm wishing a tragedy on somebody. You know what I mean? So you learn.
I came in the fire service with nothing. I mean, I was a high school dropout. I learned how to be a husband. I learned how to be a father. I learned how to be a man in the kitchen watching those other guys.
My life has taken me in a lot of great, different directions. But I realize what I keep coming back for. It's not the fighting fires. I can't do that anymore. It's the guys, the family. John, thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You're off the hot seat.
That was good.
You're a character yourself.
Yes. Well,
You are.
as you know, some of the best character studies are in the firehouse.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Thanks for talking to us, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Not so bad, right?
No.
Larry hasn't lost his touch. You still got your touch.
All right, Steve, who was the toughest fireman you ever worked with?
Well, I mean, come on, Mike.
This is home box, right? We can curse. It's home box.